Now, you guys know that I do love my Galaxy S23 Ultra, but sometimes I do miss my iPhone. Now, as many of you guys know, ever since the Galaxy S23 Ultra has come out, it's easily been my favorite phone to use this year, which is why I decided to make it my main everyday phone. In the past, even before I started my content creation journey, I've always been switching between iPhone and Galaxy my whole life. In 8th grade, I got the Galaxy S3. In 9th grade, I got the iPhone 5S. In 10th grade, I got the Galaxy S6, stayed with Samsung until I got my S8, and then I switched back over to iPhone when I got my iPhone XR. And even when I started creating content, I've always put my SIM card into many other phones, but at the end of the day, I've always considered the iPhone as my main phone no matter what, and I always ended up putting my SIM card back into it. But this year was a year that something changed. I got my Galaxy S23 Ultra, and I absolutely loved it. From the amazing display, to the buttery smooth software, to the amazing look and build quality, all the way down to the customizations within One UI 5.1, I instantly became hooked. And for the first time in a long time, I considered another phone that wasn't an iPhone to be my true main phone. Yeah, I do have a bunch of other phones that I still use and test out, but at the end of the day, whenever I put my SIM card into my S23 Ultra, I always feel at home, if that makes sense. And again, I am a tech creator and I use so many different phones, but at the end of the day, I am human, and there are certain devices that I like more than others. And right now, there's no phone that touches my S23 Ultra. But that doesn't mean that there aren't times where I do miss the easiness of my iPhone. And there are benefits of both phones. Some things that I wish I could do on my iPhone that I can't do on my Galaxy, and vice versa. So in this video, I will be breaking down some of the things that I do miss since switching to the Galaxy S23 Ultra as my main phone. Now, the first thing that I do miss since switching over from my S23 Ultra to my iPhone 14 Pro Max is the social media optimization. And now when I say social media optimization, what I basically mean is how well social media apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter work within the device's software. Like for example, the camera within most social media apps besides Snapchat are literally designed for the iPhone's camera, meaning that if you have an iPhone, you can go to the camera within Instagram and it will work perfectly fine. The quality will not dip in the slightest. Emojis when you post on stories look high quality and fitting. Regular pictures are more sharp, which is great since social media developers specifically had the iPhone users in mind. But with my Galaxy S23 Ultra, the quality takes a dip and it doesn't look great, which means that I'll have to go through the extra work of recording regularly and then uploading to social media. Emojis look awful and out of place when I put them in my stories, and the pictures look slightly altered in the worst way. And even going through social media apps, as you can see right here, I'm on Twitter on the iPhone, and the font looks much more cleaner, and it really looks like it's meant for the app. The sizing of the app is also very compatible with the size, and it has a much better feel, if that makes sense. I've always went through more bugs when using Twitter on my Android phones. It's gotten better, but it's still laggy at times, and the font with the smoothness of the apps just doesn't compare in my opinion. And even going deeper into social media optimization, I'm a Twitter Blue user, and it has more features and customizations for the iPhone, which basically tells you which phone most social media apps prioritize. Now, the next reason as to why I sometimes do miss my iPhone as my daily is one of the main forms of communication, and that's the messaging apps. Even comparing the 3 possible messaging apps that I have on my Galaxy, the Google Messenger is the best option and the smoothest, but it still doesn't compare to iMessage. The Samsung Messenger app is still pretty good as well, but I do have some problems with it since it's the main one I use. And WhatsApp isn't much of an option since I'm in the US, and like most people born here, I do prefer the other 2 options as far as communication. But before I discuss further details as to why I don't like these apps as much, I want to give you guys an idea of why I would miss using iMessage on the daily, with the first reason being just how easy it is to communicate when you're in the US. And see, a majority of people in the US own an iPhone. And to give you an idea, let's say you come to the US and you meet 20 people. Out of those 20 people, 18 to 19 of them will have an iPhone, which again gives you an idea of how much Apple runs the US smartphone market. And since everyone does own an iPhone, it's much easier to communicate and get a message across. Instead of doing the extra work to send someone a photo through messages, I can just airdrop them even if I don't have them in my contacts. Whenever I'm out with friends and I need to see where my homie is at, he can either send me his location through iMessage, or I can FaceTime him to see the area where he's actually at. And even using an iPhone for group chats. Everyone has an iPhone, so it's easy to react to a message without saying anything. You can do group FaceTimes, and you can play mini games in this chat. And the final thing that I feel makes messaging much easier when using an iPhone is Apple Pay. Again, everyone has an iPhone, so instead of using Zelle or Cash App that many people don't have, I know everyone will have Apple Pay, so I can just send or request money there. And now that we know why it's easier to miss iMessage if you live in the US, let's go deeper into why Samsung Messenger made me miss it even more. Now, receiving videos when sent from an iPhone is pretty horrible, My grandma sends me videos of my little cousin all the time, but the video is so blurry and messed up that I still can't enjoy it as much. The Messenger is a little bit more confusing than iMessage as well. Like right here, when we look at my iMessage setup, you have the emojis on the bottom left with voice text on the right, and basically everything is laid out so that when you tap it once, it comes up. But with Samsung Messenger, I always find myself having to make multiple taps to access emojis and symbols, which can get pretty annoying. Also, typing messes up less on my iMessage. The letters on the keyboard are wider, which means less accidental touches. And with the Samsung Messenger, the keyboard letters are a little bit skinnier, so I often have to go back to correct things. And also, I prefer iMessage emojis and the style, but that's personal preference and doesn't really add to anything. And then the next thing that really made me miss my iPhone 14 Pro Max as my main phone at times is the selfies. Now, this is just my personal opinion, but I think that when it comes to taking selfies and capturing the best photo for a person of color, nothing compares to the iPhone and the Google Pixel. And that's the one thing that I never really liked about Samsung phones in general. They have always been great at capturing everything from outside nature to street objects, all the way down to people with lighter skin tones. But when it comes to my selfies, they always make me seem lighter, which is pretty understandable because in Samsung's main market, the general public likes the fact that it can lighten your skin. But for a lot of people of color in America, we like our skin tones to look more accurate when taking pictures. But other than that, I think the selfies are great, the sharpness has improved, the surrounding areas are very nice as far as colors, and the software does a really great job. But the skin lightening is a problem that I think should be fixed with the units they ship to America. Now, going more into the camera, another thing that I quote unquote missed when having my iPhone as my main phone was the video camera. And the reason why I say quote unquote missed is because I tried to use my Galaxy S23 Ultra to record videos for the channel, but I found that it didn't look as good as when I was using my iPhone. So I did make a compromise. Whenever I shoot a video, I will be using my iPhone as my camera, but whenever I'm out with just my S23 Ultra, I'll basically just use that instead, which is a pretty good system that I think works for me. And don't get me wrong, the S23 Ultra has an amazing camera that I have no problem using, but I mostly edit my videos with my MacBook, so it's much easier to transfer videos using my iPhone. Like right here, this is one of the videos that I recorded, and all I have to do is click on each video, click the share button, click on my MacBook Pro, and the video sends within a minute and is ready to edit right there. So again, when it comes to videos, the reason why it's so hard for me to truly switch over is because the iPhone gives me an easier solution and slightly better quality. And now the final major reason as to why I sometimes miss my iPhone as my main phone is because I really hate Android Auto. Now there are many reasons why I hate Android Auto, but I think the main reason as to why I do, because it makes everything more complicated than it needs to be. Like right here with Apple CarPlay, whenever I'm using maps, I find it easier to use my phone to type in the address, and after typing in the address, it pops up on my car screen. But with Android Auto, it literally doesn't even give me the option to type in my address from my device. And mind you, my car is in park, so it's not a safety hazard, so I have to unplug my phone, type in the address, plug it back in again, and even using Android Auto for messages or phone calls, I can't even use the Samsung phone app because it only supports the Google phone app, so it makes communication from phone to the car screen not connected when I'm making calls. And there's just so many things that I don't like about Android Auto. I think that the apps look bad compared to Apple CarPlay apps that are much more spacious and better optimized. Scrolling through the software is more laggy while also looking worse. And I think that the main crime of Android Auto is that it just looks extremely outdated. It looks like Google hasn't updated it in years and refuses to give it the refresh that it needs. And I think that pretty much wraps up everything that made me miss my iPhone at times. Each phone has their pros and cons, and this video was specifically about the Galaxy S23 Ultras, so I don't want anyone to think that I'm an Apple or a Samsung fanboy because I criticize each and I have no loyalty to any company. I love both phones, and the reason I say sometimes I miss my iPhone is because at the end of the day, despite its flaws, I think that the Galaxy S23 Ultra is by far the best phone in the market, and I'm very happy that it's my main phone whenever choosing between devices. And let me know down in the comments, what are some things that you missed since you switched to the iPhone or the Galaxy? Let me know. And again, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.